Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to the Kiran Rai Show. How have you guys been? I hope you guys have been keeping well and keeping safe. I know काफी कुछ हो रहा है दुनिया ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਅਗਲੇ ਹਫਤੇ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ about relationships and how to find your perfect partner, and we're going to dive a bit more into that on today's show as well. And today's show I want to welcome back Suki Pen and Jodh, Jesse and Jas on the show. So thank you guys for all coming back. How are you all? I hope you guys have been keeping safe.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on.
Good.
So we were talking last week about, you know, how do you kind of tell your family if you know you've met someone, you know, through a dating app, because काफी कुछ हो जाता on dating app. Everything is now online. ना आजकल हर चीज online you चुटकियां च मिल जाती है. So, you know, even to find a person, कहते हैं online Google बाबे दस दो की चाहिदा है, Google बाबे ने आप ही तेनू दे देना है. And you know, with Rishte, unfortunately, not everything is like that. Like Suki Pen said in our last show, that someone else used their photo, and it's happened to me too, where you know someone else has used my photo on a dating app. So how do you kind of believe कि जो तुसी देख रहे हैं social media पे and even on these dating apps that it's actually safe, because you don't really know, do you? Jodh, how do you feel about, you know, about this? What's your opinion on it?
I have seen dating apps work, and then I've seen the dark side of dating apps too. So I know a friend of mine and cousin of mine actually got married through a dating app, so that was a success. But then, like you're talking about, there's a lot of catfishing. There's a lot of people that are hiding behind screens and using other people's pictures, and you can't really know, and you don't know a person's intentions that are doing that. So it can be a very dangerous place, especially when you, let's just say, have started conversating with this person and you don't know who you're meeting, and it turns out to be a completely different person. So yes, there is a dark side of that app, whereas it's much more easier, especially when you're, let's just say, meeting someone face to face. You know exactly who you're seeing, you know that person, but when you're meeting someone, you don't know if it's going to be the right person that you saw on the picture and who you've been speaking to. So it can be a bit of both. So I think because of the dating app stigma, I think what that tends to do is it has like a very negative connotations attached to it. So if you look at a dating app, if you were to tell your friends, oh, I met this person through a dating app, their idea of a dating app is like Tinder. Like it has a very negative connotation. But it depends on you as a person, what your intentions were, and you might find someone that had the same intentions as you anyways. So it's just a way for you to meet people. But I just think the dating app industry has been abused, and it's got a very negative connotation attached to it right now. So it can work because I've seen it work, but also there is a very dark side to it. So it's a bit of both, and I guess that's just the way it goes.
And Jas, what's your opinion on it? Because you live in a household where you've got sisters in the house, you know. So how having sisters in the house? Are you the oldest?
I'm second eldest. Jessie's the oldest.
Then how does that feel? You know, having, what's your opinion on that?
About the use of dating sites?
Yeah, so the use of dating sites. You know, some people kind of photo chara ke na apni bana lende hai, and they make all
We've
this
all
fake
experienced like catfishing. I don't use the app. I'm not on any dating apps or anything like that. And kind of like Suki, I'm a little bit against it and a bit reluctant to take that route and path as of now. I'm not saying that it doesn't work for anybody. I know it does work it has worked for people. And I think during lockdown, the stories I was reading on social media was that people were on the apps just as time passed because they were bored. And I think that's actually so sad, because there were genuine people out there that are trying to look for their life partners, and then you just have people kind of wasting your time. So I can see why there's so much stigma around dating apps, and there's a lot of trust issues around it too. I think genuinely from the get-go you kind of know, like, your intuition never lies. But it is unfortunate, like I have seen and heard a lot of stories that people have been catfished, and people's times have just been wasted. People are bored, and I think it's a really like mean thing to do.
And Sukipen, when you how did you find out that someone was using your picture on this profile? How did it happen?
So somebody actually screenshotted it and sent it to me over Instagram. Again, Instagram's another one of those platforms where you get a lot of a lot of nice stuff, but then lots of not so nice stuff. So somebody sent it to me and said it's been used, and I was like, brilliant, it's not me. So I don't know who you think you're talking to. It's definitely not me. But one thing I do want to say is, like, maybe us as a community, we need to do more to sort of help people find their partners, because if we're not going to, say, functions where potentially you could maybe meet somebody, or if your family member says, what do you think of this person, or such a family member might put you in touch with somebody else, we're not doing that. People are put off by dating apps. Maybe as a community we need to sort of maybe look at holding events where maybe not speed dating, but where people can potentially come and meet people that want to find a partner. So they're not going to be messing you around, and that they're serious, they want to settle down. I've seen some of my Muslim friends, they say they have, like, Muslim events for people to actually go out and meet somebody, and it's much better where this meeting someone face to face, and you can interact with them that way. So maybe we need to be doing a bit more, whether our local Gurdwara can help, and because everybody wants to find their life partner, and I do believe that there is someone out there for everyone, but just don't settle for just anyone. Don't worry about it. If you're sort of in your 30s or late 40s and you're not married, don't think there's a certain age limit where you need to be married. Don't feel pressured if your family's saying such and such a person's married, or one, like, they're much younger than you. So what? Like, I don't feel like there's an age limit of when you should be married by, and don't let that put you off.
And we hear that a lot, don't we? Especially in our culture, सियाने कहंदे आ, जवानियां मान, so you go out, do your thing, and then as time goes on, your age you get to 30, or you go above 30, people kind of start talking in the community, say, hey, na vyah nahi kita, aje kaate nahi vyah hoya, why is it not? It's almost like, everything is capped, isn't it? You have, like certain ages of, you should be married by this time, you should have university by this time, you should have your degree, your career needs to be set at this time, marriage needs to happen at this time, you should have kids at this time, should have a house. Everything's such on a timeline. But why do we actually have that in our culture? Is it because, the generation that we've kind of grown up with, and our parents' generations and their generations, they kind of grew up working, and it was just a working life. So everything was, they had to get certain things ticked off, so that when their kids grow up, they don't have to face these things. But yet it still happens. So why do we have a certain age and a timeline for everything? What do you think, Sukiben? Why do you think this happens?
My mum, she was married when she was 19. And to think, if I was to get married at 19, it's like, what on earth? I could barely look after myself. But that was sort of, back in that time. I think, they do worry about, if you do get married later, you're going to have your kids a bit later. So when your kids are a bit older, you're going to be older, maybe not be able to enjoy that time with them. Maybe that's the mentality that they have. However, now, it's much more important to make sure you've got a good job, education, you can able to support yourself. The times have changed. This is why I think it doesn't matter how old you are when you do get married. If like I said, if you're in your sort of early 30s, late 30s, 40s, there's nothing wrong with that. You shouldn't put pressure on yourself to get married at a young age. I personally don't think, anyway.
Jyot, do you think, from what Suki's saying, do you think that from a guy's point of view, is it important for a guy, for most males, to kind of say, actually, how can I get married, or I'm not really ready for marriage because my parents are telling me I've got this pressure from the community, or from society, or from culture, and also from family. But at the minute, I'm not ready because I know that I need to get a job. I need to be able to be on my feet. If I can't support myself, I can't support my wife or the kids that are going to come into my life. I can't really build a family. Do guys have that pressure on them, and how does it make them feel?
Absolutely. I think we all have it. I think what it comes down to, especially in the Punjabi culture, it comes down to something called izzat. Because the way that our parents were brought up is just like, it's not about your relationship with your parents, it's about what the society thinks. And that's the biggest downfall of that culture, is that at the end of the day, everyone's got their own journey. Everyone's going to be growing at different pace. You can have someone that's married at 19 and have a beautiful, successful marriage, and then you can have someone that's married at 22 and divorced at 30 with 2 kids, and then you're just looking at it like, oh, it didn't work. then you can have someone that married at 35 with beautiful kids, and they and are such a blissful marriage. So it works either way. And I think what we need to break away from, especially as this culture, is what people think. I think that's been the biggest downfall from the generations before. As guys, we definitely have that pressure too. So, for example, I remember when I was like 22 or 23, and I was having an open conversation with my mom. So, luckily for me, I have a very beautiful relationship with my parents. So, we have proper conversations, like we get to understand. So, I think, like Jas was saying before, like she's got a very good family foundation. Whereas some people, they don't have that foundation where they can have that open dialect. So for me, it's been an open dialect. My mum said, "You're never going to be ready. Like life moves so fast. Like it's never going to be a point where you're going to have like everything ticked off. You just got to find the person and work towards it together, rather than just thinking I need to be at this stage in my life before I start thinking about marriage." So I just think it comes down to what your family dynamics are. If you know your family dynamics is one of those where you don't have that as a guy, and I can't speak to my parents openly, and I'm closed off, then it's gonna be a problem, because then you're kind of living up to what your parents want you to be rather than trying to express yourself, and that always causes anger within certain males, and that is something that they'll drag on to probably in the relationships, and that's never going to be healthy for anyone. So as a guy, you just got to be learn to be open and just build a relationship with your parents where you can be open and honest, because there's no point of you falling under family pressures, getting married to someone, then all of a sudden now you're ruining two lives rather than just because you haven't got it figured out, if that kind of makes sense. So my advice to men would be, um, especially if you are living in a family pressured environment, build that relationship with your parents so you can have that open kind of dialect. And if you're a parent listening to this, I would just say listen to your children, because there's no point of you getting them married and they were not ready for marriage, because then you just destroy two lives. That's what I would say.
And
So be open.
I think, and another thing, adding to that, we do get families that some families are quite modern and they won't mind. Some people even get married out of our culture as well. Whereas some families, get married, like they're so strict to how they want certain things and things like that. So they kind of just tick the box for you. And that can be very, very hard. You need to kind of find midway with your parents to kind of be able to talk to them. Your parents are your best friends. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਾਪੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਦੁਸ਼ਮਣ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ. They always want what's best for us, because ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੀ life ਦੇਖੀ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਤੰਗੀਆਂ ਦੇਖੀਆਂ ਆ, and they've seen the good times and the bad times. And throughout all of that, what they kind of have this idea in their head that, in this picture, they've made this perfect picture, haven't they, in their head from what they've gone through, that actually when my child grows up, I would love it if they had a partner like this. But that's only because of the life experience they've grown up to. So having that, George, the question for you, as guys, you see your father figure. If you have a father figure, many houses, but if you do have a father figure and you do have a mother figure, you kind of watch their relationship and grow up. So does that impact, males as they're growing up and watching their fathers and mothers and watching their relationship to how they are as a person, how they should be in a relationship? What do you think?
Absolutely. As a child, when you're growing up, the first relationship that you observe is your parents. So when you're looking at your parents' relationship, if it's not a healthy one, then you're going to have a very, very negative connotations towards, let's just say, marriage, because you're looking at it like, hey, I don't want this. Like if my parents are in an abusive relationship or a relationship that's not working and they're not even talking to each other, and you don't see that love that you see on a Bollywood movie, or even like, because you know how it is, and especially Punjabi households, especially when we're watching movies, everyone just like covering eyes. So when it comes down to love and your idea of love, because our idea of love is completely different to the idea of love that our parents had. But if they haven't had a positive relationship, you're taking that on, and you're just asking yourself the question, like, why do I want to be in a relationship? And you'll have those questions as a teenager. I've seen a lot of people have those questions, like, oh, marriage is not for me, because I've seen what my parents are like, and why would I want that in my life? Or you can have parents who have had a very beautiful marriage. Yes, they're not perfect, but they always work at it and they're a team. And with that, you're like, hey, this is something I want, but maybe just not this. Maybe I'll tweak this, but you've got a good foundation that you can work off. So it's important that to realize that, hey, my family, my parents are going to be the first people I look at when I look at a partner. So as a guy, you're always looking for someone with your mother's qualities, right?
Mm.
So and as a female, I'm sure if you've had that beautiful family whereby your mom and dad have had a very good relationship, and you're looking at a guy to be your kind of similar to your father figure, right? So it works both ways. So it's important that you understand what marriage is and what you want from marriage, and then work towards that. So
Mm.
it can work both ways. Like I said, there's so many families that you can come across where it's just like completely destroyed, and there's some families which are truly beautiful. So it just depends on what your life experiences has been. So it does really impact you as a child.
Mm. And girls, how do you feel about it? Do we kind of, as girls, do we kind of just watch what our parents are doing? Does it, if we see someone, if we hear about it in the news, don't we, to say, you know, the father kind of beat the mother, and it kind of plays a part, doesn't it? It makes you kind of think, oh, that must be really horrible to even watch for even the even for the kids that are in that house. So how is it in your houses? You know, do you kind of watch, you know, your parents growing up from a young age and think, you know, that's an idea, isn't it? It's like an image in our head, thinking that's what a relationship be like. That's what our partner should be like. You know, yeah. What do you think? What's your view, Jessie? What's your view on it?
Like, I mean, looking at my parents' relationship, I do sort of look up to it in a sense that like they work hard and you know the love, the communication, and the respect is there. And obviously, you sort of expect that when you meet someone, you think to yourself that I want a man that treats me with love and respect, like how my dad treats my mom. So I definitely do feel that's like the fundamental relationship. But then I know people who grown up without a mother figure or a father figure who still turned out okay, who's still as loving and still caring. I think it's just who you're surrounded by and what you see as well. It's not always down to how your parents are. Sometimes, even if somebody had like an abusive father, as a or a abusive mother, for example, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to carry those traits. They might think, well, I want my kids to have a better childhood than what I did. So it can sort of
Mm.
swing either way. It just sort of, obviously, I do feel like from my perspective, I've been brought up in a household, obviously, with healthy relationships and hoping like I'd find a partner that I can build a healthy, you know, bond and relationship with as well. But we always improve, like we always think, okay, well, there's certain things that our parents could work on, but we think, well, we can bring that element into our relationship. So you're always sort of forever growing and evolving and learning as well.
Mm. And Sukiben, in your household, of course, I know Jassy and Jess, they're both sisters. So Sukiben, in your household, what's it like in your household? What's your opinion on it?
Yeah, so I've got two brothers, and my older brother's married, so I've got a babby and two nephews. Seeing my parents' relationship, you know, they've had it tough, but they've sort of stuck with it through the thick and thin. They've been through some difficult times, but to see, you know, how they've just sort of overcome that and they've stuck together. Yeah, they have arguments. Yeah, you know, all couples do, but they sort of just get over it. They always make up at the end of the day. You know, my dad usually just wanders off for a couple of hours, and my mum just sort of sits in a different room. But then within a couple of hours, are like, my dad's like, "Shall I make some tea?" Or my mum's like, "Shall I, you know, shall I do this, that, the other?" So seeing their relationship, it's definitely made me think, you know what, this is the type of person that I would want my partner to be like. My mum's very, you know, like our parents are very family oriented, and that's probably what I'm like. I probably picking up those traits from her. But then there's certain things that she does which I feel like, you know, I would not want to do. Whereas, like, you know, she's mothered my brothers so much to the point where I'm like, why can't they do stuff around the house? Why are they allowed to like, why is the girl expected to do everything? That's not right. I don't want my partner to be expecting me to do the cooking, the cleaning and everything myself. Not that I wouldn't do that. Bear in mind, we all work, you know, so they should help around the house just as much. And fingers crossed, I've trained my brother now. He helps me massively around the house. But again, my older brother was like that. So my older brother lives separately with my babby and my nephews. And again, he was just so mothered. He wasn't doing chores around the house. Now he does absolutely everything. Like my bubby sort of, helped him to condition him in a way where he does help around the house with the kids and everything. So there's certain things I've picked up from my parents' relationship where I'm like, wouldn't want that. But overall, it's that love and stuff. And like I said, they've gone through so much, and fingers crossed that they're still together for many, many years, and it's lovely to see. And that's what I think makes me want to have that relationship with my ideal partner, and that's probably why I'm not sort of settled down just yet. Like I said, I feel like you shouldn't just settle for anyone. I feel like there's someone for everybody. So yeah, definitely just keep at it, and I'm sure you will meet your life partner one day.
And so George, how do you know, like, when guys look at they find the partner that they're looking for, how do they know that this is the one? Ehi kuriya inna main vyah karna, inna puri life mein katani hai. So how do from guys' point of view, from a guy's angle, how do they know that it's the perfect? I've met the one. What are the key things that they kind of look for, in a girl?
I'm going to quote my friend on this who just recently got married. He's like a close brother of mine. He just said when he was dating, so he has a very, very open relationship with his mother, and they're very close. So when he started dating, it was very transparent. You know exactly where he's going. There's no kind of lies. And the moment he knew that this person was the one is because when he basically said that when you are dating someone, they will treat you differently to how they treat society, right? So because there's something to gain. Now, this person was treating everyone the same. So she was making effort to build relationship with her with his mom. She was getting to know everything else and the family dynamics, and she was genuinely putting effort in. And he said, I knew this person was the one because she wasn't just making effort just for me. She was making effort everywhere, like everyone around. And it's important for you to do that because at the end of the day, like we say in Punjabi, especially in our culture, it's not two people getting married, it's two families getting married. So if you can get someone that's going to be the same towards you as your mom, that's the biggest blessing. So he knew that this person was the one because of not the fact that, because we always treat people differently depending on what we can gain from them. And that's just the harsh reality of it. But when you got someone that's so centered and so loving, that love is just transparent everywhere and they work towards every single relationship, then you know that person is for you. So then it all comes down to exactly what you are looking for in a relationship. If you are after someone that's going to be family centered, then you start looking at qualities. Hey, is this person actually being family centered or is it just a facade? So I'm going to quote him on that. It's when the qualities that you set is matching to exactly what that person.
And so in that sense, how do you find out? How do you get to know what they are like?
I think you've got to set yourself like a limit at least. Like you can't just be in a 3-year relationship and then all of a sudden decide, this is not for me. You got to say, actually, wait, I'm going to get to know this person for the next 6 months and I'm just going to get to know them properly. Right? And once you've got to know them, then take the next step where you're introducing each other to your families. So whether that takes 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, obviously don't place time limits, but have a certain plan that you're working towards. Not just let's see where it goes. That's like the worst thing you can do as a man and as a female. Just get into a relationship and just see where it goes. Okay, make it a deadline because that if you're seeing where it goes, it could drag on for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and then that 3-year relationship. Now you've invested so much, now all of a sudden it doesn't work. But it wasn't working from the start, but I'm hoping it did. So it's have systematic plans and work towards it. Be very open with your partner. So if you're getting to know someone, just say, look, I want to get to know you. And at this point in time, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at marriage in probably a year or 2. Is that something that you're working towards? If that person's like, no, I want to get married in like the next 10, you know that person's not for you. So why are you going to waste time with that person? So if you can have, in a relationship and dating especially, what there is something called a honeymoon phase. Right?
Yeah.
Where you're constantly trying to show your best side. I remember one of my friends, she said on my first date when I got to know the person, I was so well behaved. By the second date, I was just on myself. Like no knife and fork, I was eating my pizza with my hand. So when you get away from the facade and when you get away from the honeymoon phase, you get to truly know that person. So the more open you are, the more truthful you are, and getting to know that person with your intentions set from the get-go is the best way going forward. Because
And
we tend to be in a relationship that drags.
mm,
Sorry, I know,
and
Kiran,
you
you were about to say.
it's a lovely, like, we're coming towards the end of the show now, and that's, you know, it's a lovely way of kind of learning how to meet your, or you know, how to find your perfect partner. वैसे सी हर Thursday no आईदा है, that every Thursday जो this आईदा कोई ना कोई topic लेके आईदा, but I really hope that you guys that are watching have taken something away from this and today's show. You know, how to find your perfect partner, what are the things to look for, what are the red flags, what are not the red flags, you know, how do you kind of look. Do you get your parents involved and go through the arranged route? Do you go find the dating app and join that? Or do you kind of go to, you know, the gurdwara, because there are gurdwaras out there that do find, you know, relationships, you know, partners for your, you know, sons and your daughters. How do you kind of do it? It's up to you. But either way, I really hope that you've taken something away from today's show. But चिंता ना करियो, ਅਸੀਂ अगले हफ्ते फिर आवांगे for today's show, and thank you for all of you that have actually joined me on today's panel. For today, वाहिगुरू जी का खालसा, तो वाहिगुरू जी की फतेह.